go. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. We'll give it a moment to give a few people a chance to tune in. It's kind of funny. I'm on a few different platforms right now at the same time. So some people, you won't be able to see engagement on each other's platform, which will be kind of interesting. So I'll be like maybe answering questions from different different spaces. But that's all right. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. For me, anyways, that's where I'm at. I'm at an evening. I don't know where everybody else is at. But for me, it's 7:30 Eastern time. And I'm already ready for bed, to be honest. I took my shower and everything. I'm ready right after this. I intend, tired but happy to be here. Perfect. Glad to have you here. Yeah, we're doing something a little bit different tonight, which I think is very exciting. I'm going to be just reading some excerpts from my next book, which I think for anyone who's really just looking for some maybe deep and connected transformation, I think that some of these excerpts will really resonate. And I think that, and I think more than that, right? I think it's about tuning into ourselves, but also how do we tune into ourselves to make the world a better place, I think is a really big theme that I like to write about. Oh, yeah, I'm an author too. Love it. Yes, love listening to readings. Oh, I love it. Well, thank you for being here. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're here. But that's kind of what we'll be doing tonight. And so maybe even just when we get started, we can take a moment. We can take a couple deep breaths together. I am a certified mindfulness teacher. My training was complete at the Lab of Meditation with Hiro Demichelis, who's quite well known in the space, does a lot of work as like a trauma counselor, is also a program facilitator for the United Nations Peace on Purpose project. So definitely recommend checking out Hiro if you don't know who Hiro is. Hiro actually did read an advanced copy of the book I'm going to share with you today, which I'm so grateful for. And so maybe I'll share Hiro's words and we can find a little piece. That's how we can kind of get introduced to Hiro. And then, yeah, and then like I said, we'll get into hello, I see Patrick and Naomi, welcome, welcome. And then we can kind of get in from there. But I do like to incorporate a little bit of mindfulness, just some deep breathing, just some invitations to come into the present moment, because I really believe that when we transform the inner world, we transform the outer world. So maybe together we can start with that. We can take a moment, get nice and comfortable wherever you are. Maybe lying down on your back, maybe you're seated in a chair or on a cushion or a mat. Just finding that comfortable posture, taking a deep inhale and exhaling, grounding ourselves here in the present moment. Inhaling again and exhaling. And one more time, we'll take a deep inhale right to the top of the breath. And exhaling. And here we are today. Maybe we can pause here, just in this space, and just noticing that stillness. See if we can find a way to just become it. Finding that sense of peace within that we know we can embody. That sense of peace that we know is always here. Even when the world around us is busy and chaotic, we can always come back to this space. And we can allow the eyelids to close if that's comfortable for you. Or we can simply rest wherever we are, just enjoying that peace, that stillness. Maybe even finding ways to enjoy the breath. Maybe for the way the deep breath sounds in the body. Maybe for the way it moves through the body. Just finding a way to love the breath and body for all the work, for all the things it takes us through together, even when we're not thinking about it. They're always here to carry us through the day. Or maybe we can allow this feeling, this appreciation to grow and expand into just a full appreciation of ourselves, who we are, everything that we've passed through today. Creating space just to love ourselves for who we are. And maybe we can find a way for that love to expand even deeper. Maybe it's exuding out of us into those around us. Maybe it's our family. Maybe it's our neighbors. Maybe it's our roommates, our pets. Maybe they're people we know. Maybe they're people we don't know. But maybe we can extend that love and appreciation to everyone around us. And one more time, maybe we can extend that even further. See that love and appreciation sent all over the world, the globe itself. A deep appreciation for all humans, plants even, animal life roaming this earth, for the earth itself, for all its hard work, offering us the air that we breathe. Everything the body needs comes from our beautiful earth. And just resting in that, knowing that this breath becomes our breath, that this life becomes our life, and this love becomes our love. And maybe we'll pause here in gratitude, just inviting anything that we may be grateful for today into this space. And when we are complete, bringing our awareness to where the earth meets the body, maybe wiggling the fingers, wiggling the toes if that's available to you. And coming back here into this present moment, into this space together. Noticing what is present, what may be coming up for us. And just taking our time resting. I will get into a reading from here now that we are present and here. Since I mentioned Hiro Demichelis in the beginning, who has trained me in many of my mindfulness teachings and offerings, perhaps I'll start with just some words that Hiro offered after finishing my book. Maybe I'll tell you what that book is first. How about that? Maybe we'll start there. This is it. It's called Human Expansive Edition. I'll get into it a little bit more because I prefer just to, offer readings and we can reflect and share together. But I will share with you some of Hiro's words. There are books you read, and then there are books that read you. This book, Vanessa's book, is this. You will find your heart softening, breaking, and opening. You will find a version of yourself between these pages, tender, fierce, once forgotten. You may even find yourself forgiving or forgiven. May this book remind us that our stories are sacred. Yours too is sacred. I think they're very beautiful opening words, isn't it? Yes, thank you for sharing that. They're very beautiful words. And I think it just really, that's actually when you open the first page, those are the first words you will see. And they're very beautiful because it just invites all of us here, right? All our journeys are threaded together. And I think that's a really great invitation into this work. So I'm very grateful to Hiro for those words. And I think it's a really great way to open up our session as well, for us to take a moment here to remind us that all of our stories are sacred today. And who knows what will come up for us when we hear anything that resonates with us. So I think what I will do is, or maybe I will, if there's anyone who wanted to share anything here in the chat before I continue. I always like to I don't want to be the only one speaking. So if there's any other reflections or thoughts or offerings anybody wanted to share, please be welcome to do so. And if not, that's quite all right. I will continue. Ooh. Sorry, I was just reading. I was like, ooh, yes, I think that's a part I want to read. But I'll start here. I'm going to start on this part that's called Reflections. And so the way that this book is written, just so that it makes sense for you when you're listening. This book is it's called Human Expansive Edition for a reason. So it's based on my first book, Human. And this is essentially a reflection of the first book because I wrote the first book almost 5 years ago. And, it's a sort of self-help type of book, but really inviting us to, I think a lot of self-help is very about our inner worlds. And so I really wrote this one to invite us to consider our inner and outer worlds and how they come together and how we can create change. And so this book is really trying to focus on that a little bit more than what my first book did. And so because this is essentially a reflection of a reflection, the way this book works is that the first book is actually included in this edition, and then I enter reflections after that. And so I'm going to start at the reflections part because I think that's where we'll get the most learnings. And I think as a group today, I think that's what will resonate with us today. And so it starts off right away with just kind of comparing kind of where I was when I wrote my first book. So it says, when I first started promoting Human and people asked me what it was about, I often said human ignorance. I felt this way at the time because of my own lived experiences, what I was healing, and where I was in my journey. The opening poem in Human invites us to acknowledge our ignorance, but the invitation is dark and lonely. This was because of how I experienced the world, often feeling the burden of society on behalf of humanity. More importantly, much of this was also the dialogue of the abandoned self, whom I've had to learn how to love since the time of writing Human. Thus, the aloneness woven through this invitation was a direct reflection of my inner world. However, Human really portrays what it looks like when we turn our back to our own suffering and the suffering of others. Turning our back to suffering is not the truth of human nature. Thus, the expansive invitation embedded within these opening words of the poem is that our inner world creates our outer world, and the journey in human reminds us that we can transform both. And maybe what I'll do is I'll read that poem, so maybe we can have some more connections. Let me go back to it here. Dun, 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 dun. Here we go. So this is the poem that that passage is referring to. In ignorance we live, bathing in its sunlight, basking in its glow, strutting through the lives of others, the ones we dare not know. Through the lens of an injured, I walk alone. It's hurt and pain I carry, but not all of it is my own. As I wander through the pages, I can't help but to note what beings we are, what beings we have become. To the depths of our world around us, to the abyss of our world inside us. To such blindness we succumb. So that was the opening poem that sort of invites us into human. And then the passage that I shared is what invites us into the reflections of human. Yes, not all of it is my own. How true. Yes, yes. I'm glad that resonates. Yes, I definitely is something that resonates with me a lot. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, yes, we do. We definitely do. We do carry so much pain from others. Yes. And sometimes it's hard to, at least for me, I always found it sometimes challenging to separate, what's mine and what's not mine. But then also, when we think of Buddhism, right? I mean, when we understand the teachings of suffering that were taught to us from the Buddha, right? Like the reality is that we do feel each other suffering. And so, but I think that the invitation is to help each of us, to help all of us transform that suffering. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because I do feel that it's like, oh, we carry so much pain, but then there's this part of me also that, how do I separate myself, but in a way where I can still, can I still help transform suffering for other people, right? But again, I think that's where equanimity comes in, right? Reminding us that I love for the sake of loving, not because it's my responsibility or it's my duty, right? But yeah, I do appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. There's one thing that I did want to share as well, and I do welcome all these thoughts, so please keep them coming. I definitely love this to be more of a dialogue or sharing and reflections. I love it. I'm sure we always hear things that will bring us back to our own lives and our own lived experiences. We may even feel things that don't align with us, and that's absolutely welcome. I'm just going to find another page here that I had marked, and I lost it. Give me one quick second here. And I will share too, the experiences that I write about are, personal experiences. So dealing with family, with trauma, friendships, et cetera, et cetera. So through these different avenues of my life, I probably won't get into too many specifics about that, because I feel like it's kind of hard to talk about in a short amount of time and just through readings. So I'm trying to offer kind of the insights or the wisdom that I think might give us a more fruitful time tonight. I'm just trying to find it. Where was it? There was something very powerful here that I wanted to share about love, especially now with so much, I think with so much the kind of global suffering that we're seeing. I think it's a lot for all of us. And so I wouldn't say I touch on that specifically, but I think there's something here that might support us, especially for those of us that maybe are just, I'm in Canada, right? So I feel that I'm seeing a lot of things and I'm kind of far removed enough that it doesn't maybe directly affect me. But, of course, it emotionally affects me, and it's hard to sometimes just be a witness. And so I think this might, if there's anyone else in a similar position where you feel like you're just kind of watching and maybe everything's almost frozen in time in a way, perhaps this might be supportive. So it starts off here. It says, fear is normal, but I extend the invitation to us all to not fear the fear. This is intentional. This is part of the colonial agenda. Love is how we overcome fear because it's more potent. If we can remind ourselves that love is the thread of our humanity, we will rise above fear and come together in a way that is equitable and truthful. On page 151 of Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet, Thich Nhat Hanh, a well-known Buddhist monk and peace activist from Vietnam, wrote, "Our enemy is not other people. Our enemy is hatred, violence, discrimination, and fear." May this be your invitation to step into love, to step into your humanity. And we'll let that resonate. Thank you for the hearts. Maybe we'll take that in. And maybe I'll share one more. I'm just looking at the time here. So maybe we'll share one more. And this is actually the closing of the book before it gets into an afterword, which I wrote. So, and it does include a line from my first book. So, we're kind of closing, talking about both books here. It says, chapter 15 of Human, which was my first book, opens with, "It is in the darkness that I only saw the hope of the light. It is in the hopes of the light that I find the truth." End quote. The words still ring true for me, but in a slightly different way. While there is more openness and expansion in these final chapters as we come full circle, there is still a key revelation that is not yet fully embodied. The real comfort of darkness comes from knowing that within darkness there is light. There is no darkness without light, and there is no light without darkness. This light is the light of expansion, the spaciousness I am writing from in this expansive edition. Love is the lightness deep within the darkness. Love itself is expansion. When we see that darkness and light coexist together, that they are interconnected, we see the comfort in both the light and dark. They are one, as we all are. From running in darkness to running in light, from running away to running toward, from racing the sunrise to embracing its rays, from hiding in solitude to being open to life, Human is more than a journey of darkness to light. In this expansive edition, Human is a journey of darkness within the light. And I'm really love that closing because it is a very it's actually a teaching, the teaching of non-self, in Buddhism, right? Is that teaching is that everything is interconnected, that there is no self that is distinguished from self, or no distinguishable self, I should say. It's the teaching of non-duality, right? You can't have right without left. Everything coexists, which means we can't have happiness, or we can't know happiness without knowing suffering. And it's one of the ways that we try to find enlightenment, or how we might find enlightenment, how we might find non-attachment, is through this teaching. And so, kind of blended in a nice Buddhist teaching into the end of that book. But I know we have a few moments left, so I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I think in terms of a reflection I might offer, if anyone wants to share anything, that I like to keep it very general and very broad, but maybe anything that came up to you that resonates with you, maybe something that doesn't. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Please be welcome to share. You can also connect with me one-on-one. I'm pretty accessible on all the platforms. I'm really excited. It's kind of funny, when I started writing this book, and I had started by rereading my first book, and I actually hated the first book when I reread it. It was like 5 years later, and I picked it up again. I was like, oh, And, it wasn't because I'm hard on myself as an artist. It was just there were so many pieces of me that I saw in a very different light, and I had to learn how to love them. And so this edition here is kind of that journey of learning how to love these different pieces of me that I saw differently for the first time. And so it's been a journey. But yeah, I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful and really, really proud of the book. I designed it as well, designed the cover, designed the inside and everything. They're actually being printed this week. Super excited. And so it'll be available on the 28th. I'm doing a big show, actually, be doing a musical performance, which I'm really excited about. And the proceeds are actually supporting a local Indigenous organization. So yeah, it's going to be, I'm super, super excited. Yeah, it's going to be great. Really, really. And I'm really grateful, especially I think, again, my ethos is really around how our inner and outer work and inner and outer worlds align. And so, it's like one thing to write about it, but then I think to put it into action, right? Like, I'm really excited about it. And yeah, it'll actually be a live stream if anybody wants to tune in. It'll be really cool. It'll be really fun. And yeah, like I said, all proceeds are supporting a local Indigenous nonprofit that offers essential services to Indigenous communities. So yeah, it's gonna be super fun. So if that's of interest to you, definitely check out my website for that. But yeah, anyways, I will leave it there. We've got another minute or two left. Thank you so much for joining me in this practice today. Thank you for meditating with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I do hope to see you again. I have my Saturday mindfulness session is coming up this Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, I think it is. That's our socially engaged mindfulness practice. So if you'd like more of that, I'll see you Saturday. And I think that's it. I think that's all I might have. I don't remember if I have one on the next Saturday, just because that's my show weekend. So I usually keep it quiet on show weekends. But we'll see. We'll see how I feel. Thank you so much for all the hearts. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for being here, and I do hope to see you again. Take care.